and welcome to the Album of the Year podcast. My name is Chris, and with me always to my right is my man Marty.
Hey, how's everybody doing out there, guys? We are coming to you live and direct from the hood of Leander, Texas.
Leander, Texas is a beautiful place. So you may have noticed that today's episode is one of the shorter ones. It's going to be a Minisode. It's another Minisode edition of our Lunchtime series.
That's right.
So I know that initially, I definitely felt like the first one went really well.
Agreed.
And the feedback that we got was all pretty positive.
Yeah, a couple of friends of mine reached out to me and said they really liked the format and they really liked how loose it was and how organic it was. Not to say that the year episode formats were not, but we thought it worked really well, and so did they. So we want to definitely keep this Minisode idea going as much as we can.
Right, but I didn't want to go back to the well this quick, just to be honest with you, just because I love our regular format so much. And I do feel like that's really what we're here for.
Absolutely.
But, we kind of had a weird thing that came up. I don't want to say the next episode is cursed or anything or put the whammy on it. But everybody got sick in my house for a couple of weeks, and we tried to record it, and there were some scheduling issues and all this. So all that time that we bought by doing the first Minisode just got eaten up. Or eaten up? Eaten up. Don't I have an English degree? What am I saying?
So. I don't know, Virginia Woolf. What's the deal? Come on. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, so anyway, eaten up. Oh, this is lovely. This is wonderful. So, so all that time was eaten up, and we kind of faced down. We've been trying to get out every 2 weeks on a Tuesday, right? So every Tuesday, every other Tuesday, new content. And we were staring down this situation where we were probably not going to be able to meet the schedule this time. So it was kind of a choice between either no episode, take Thanksgiving off, or hey, let's do another lunchtime episode. That really well.
Yeah.
So. And I think we hit on a really good topic.
I agree. I think we hit the nail on the head. So since it's so close to the Thanksgiving holiday here in the States, for those of you that may not be outside the U.S. listening, we decided to make the theme a Thanksgiving theme for this Lunchtime Minisode, and the theme was turkeys.
Turkeys.
And not what you think turkeys. Do you want to go ahead and explain that, Chris?
You know what? I think we do a pretty good job of explaining it.
I suppose we
episode.
do. Yeah, so, that's very true.
But for those of you who may be listening to this as the first time, like the first episode that you've listened to, this is a different kind of episode. We recorded this on an iPhone. The quality of the audio is variable. We literally hop in the car at the beginning of the episode. We record
as soon as the doors open to Chris's car, we hit record, and that's literal. And the recording process is intentional for sure.
Yeah, it's part of the charm. I think.
It is.
We're not trying to get lapel mics and really do some on the go thing. We're gonna get Stephen Cadena to bring a boom mic next time, and we're try to really blow this out. Anyway, no, that's not going to happen. Like the idea is that it's loose, it's fast and loose, and the conversation's loose, and the recording quality is loose. So if this is your first episode, I was super proud of the 1985 episode, the episode 4. Me too. I thought it was really good. That's a really good place to start if it's your first time.
It is.
But give this a shot, because I think the conversation's great. We go into some cool places.
Yep.
And we eat some good turkey sandwiches.
We do eat some pretty good turkey sandwiches.
One of my favorite parts, listen for the part where the person making the sandwich asked me a question point blank, and I'd sit and blank for 10 seconds.
And I was like, hey, Chris, do you want it Mike's way?
I'm like, what? The problem is I haven't been to Jersey Mike's enough, so we eat at Jersey Mike's. And she's like, do you want it Mike's way? And I had no idea it sounded like she just mumbled something to me.
Oh, really?
Like, what is she talking about? And I didn't realize it was kind of directed at me. Then, anyway, listen for that, because it's it's some Buster Keaton comedy.
And it was funny, and one of the things we try and go for when we do this is just kind of living in the moment, right? And there was a point where we were sitting up about to order, and we were just talking, and the guy was like slicing the meat and stuff and getting other sandwiches, and he was like, what do you guys need? And I was like, oh, and he was like, I'm sorry to interrupt you. And we were like, no, it's cool, man. Like, we're just talking, and it's interesting to see like the dynamic that we have out in the real world when we record these Lunchtime episodes, because I mean, people see me holding my phone, but who knows if they really know or understand what we're doing, and I think that's really neat.
We
you know what I'm saying?
Look like two crazy people.
Talking about Mobb Deep and Nas and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But it's so this is going to be a fun time, guys. I think there's not really much more to explain other than that. Hopefully next time we're going to have this episode, like a full episode. That's the game plan.
That is the game plan.
And I think it's just about ready to roll. So I hope everybody's having a great Thanksgiving. And without further ado,
here's Lunchtime Lunchtime Minisode number 2.
Turkeys.
Enjoy, guys. All right, we're rolling.
Rolling again.
All right,
take 2.
Lunchtime episode numero dos. Here we
Let's
go.
Just do the whole thing in Spanish.
Yeah.
It's okay. I don't think we get too far. How's everybody doing?
Oh man, yeah. We're hitting you guys up with another lunchtime episode. We had so much fun doing the first one.
Yeah, it was a great time. And we did kind of want to space them out originally,
yeah.
but just some things came up in real life trying to record the next episode. So
yes.
we kind of had a choice between either holding off on releasing something or just doing another lunchtime, and we figured, hey,
let's just do it, man. Let's go for the gusto here.
More content. So don't get, if you're in love with the the album format, we are too. So this is not like, we're not going to start doing them half and half or anything like that. Exactly. It's just kind of a fluke of the process this time, but that's all right.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of podcasts do a Minisode format along with their regular episodes too, and we really like that idea.
Yeah,
so
totally
we're
ride
still,
those coattails, man.
We're still. I'm just saying.
No, I'm totally.
We're still, invested in the yearly format as well.
Yeah,
so
big time.
So
big time. Pro audio. Today, folks.
That's right, Chris.
Got that pro audio.
So it's almost Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so this is our big Thanksgiving special.
This is our Thanksgiving special minisode, right? Yeah. And we're going to talk about turkeys.
We're going to talk about turkeys today. So not everybody is familiar with that show business slang, turkeys. So we probably ought to describe what that means.
Yes.
So in the context of music, well, it's a show business. So you guys know the song, There's No Business Like Show Business. There's a famous line in it where like, even with a turkey that you know will fold, you may be stranded out in the cold, still you wouldn't trade it for a sack of gold. Let's go on with the show, right?
What?
So the idea is that
you just rattled that off.
Yeah,
man.
I actually was.
Like, what is that? That's like
Charlie and Annie Get Your Guns.
Oh, that's what that song's from.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's great.
So a turkey in show business parlance is a dud, a bad play or a bad movie or something that you know it just flat out isn't working, right? It just sucks. And so in musical context, a turkey is going to be, an album or maybe a song, or a period of your career, a dork age it's sometimes called.
Dork age?
You never
really?
heard that?
No.
Dork age. Yeah, so it's a dud. It's something that doesn't work,
Yeah.
And so I know that a lot of times like we look at the charts and we laugh about music that we don't like and stuff. And I don't want everyone to think we're obsessed with talking about bad music or making fun of people's records. Part of what we wanted to do today, we will talk probably a little bit about just stuff that's completely worthless.
Yeah. Well, and I think that also a lot of the things we think are bad, they're universally considered bad. Like, we're not going to get any opposition to us disliking Sugar Walls by Sheena Easton.
Right. So that's not that interesting for today's topic. Like, I don't want to just say, let's run over To the Extreme by Vanilla Ice one more time. Like that. There is a point where we can all take as read that those are bad. And they're turkeys in a sense. But what's more interesting to me are situations where maybe an artist that you like releases something weird or I don't know, something like that. Situations where it's really unexpected.
Exactly. So we're looking at, essentially with the turkeys, we're looking at artists that, maybe are, considered by the cultural vanguard to be very good and very important. We're looking maybe at those and we're shedding a light to see if maybe like they made some dog biscuits, like they made some bad albums. They made some what did you say?
Dork age. They went through a dork age.
They went through a dork age.
Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. I've never heard that.
You never heard that
No.
phrase?
Is that
great.
like a roaring 20s thing? Like, hey, it's the dork age.
I've been through a dork age.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
The dork age is about us with prohibition. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, sorry if my roaring 20s voice is not.
No, it's fantastic. It's like the dork age. Superman is a red and blue Superman now in the dork age. It's something like that. It's like a period where it's like, what the heck was going on there?
So. Sorry, Chris.
No, it's great. I love it.
Yeah, I like it too. But
we're driving along, by the way. Because we're talking
way.
about turkeys. I wanted to go someplace where I could get a turkey sandwich.
Yeah.
So that you may be listening to this on Thanksgiving Day. I know we got listeners all around the world and stuff. But
some people don't celebrate Thanksgiving. Yeah, that's okay, obviously.
But it's we're Americans and it's a part of our heritage here.
It is.
So you may be American and you may be eating your turkey and your cranberry sauce and whatever.
Yeah.
Your
Or you may be one of our 4 listeners in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Yeah. And you may be thinking, why on earth are they talking about Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
What's the deal with turkey? So it's just a traditional meal, so I'm going to have a turkey sandwich. I don't know what
So we're going to go to Jersey Mike's, and they have like a turkey club. I think I'm going to get that. That's like turkey bacon.
Cool.
It's pretty good. You put pickles on there, it's not bad.
Fantastic. That's great. You know, if we were really smart, we would turn this into like a total marketing thing where it's get Jersey Mike's to pay us. Just so everybody knows up front, Asia Cafe, Jersey Mike's, whatever we do on lunchtime, it's totally just a choice.
Exactly. It's based on what we have in proximity to where we work.
Exactly. So we're not getting a cut off this.
No, definitely not.
So, but if you want to visit the Jersey Mike's in Bosnia, they'll take good care of you.
They will.
Anyway, so that's where we're headed right now.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, get that, get that number 13, the loaded Italian sub. You're going to love it. That's all I'm saying.
You will.
But anyway, so turkeys, so artists, so I was telling Chris on the way to the car, I kind of glossed over a couple of like articles from like Rolling Stone and some like city papers that were like, bad debut albums by good artists and bad albums by artists that are, as I said, like accepted by the cultural vanguard as important, whatever. So, so what, Chris, where do you start within this topic? Because it seems like you have some pretty good starting points from what we've talked about.
Sure.
So
to me, the first, when I think of a turkey, the most interesting turkey, well, there's a couple of different ones, but the most interesting ones to me are turkeys that make you rethink whether you even like this artist at all.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I know it's like 2 episodes in a row that we're talking about the Spin Doctors, but to me,
I
they're
knew
like
they'd come
the
up.
ultimate example
I knew
of
that
this.
the Spin Doctors
We kind of talk about it. Sometimes it's called the sophomore jinx. The second album is often a difficult album for a band to make.
Yeah.
But sometimes the second album is so bad that you look back at the first album and go, all the stuff I didn't like about the first album, that's really who this band is.
Right.
It's so instead of building on it, it's like you see the whole thing crumble. And I think the Spin Doctors, that's definitely true. We talked last time about how Pocket Full of Kryptonite has a couple of redeeming qualities.
Yeah.
It's not great, but it's got some 3 or 4 songs on it that are okay. And if that's the direction they're heading, then maybe they can they can salvage. They can do something interesting.
Right.
That second Spin Doctors album though, is a turkey.
It's bad.
It's bad. There's a couple of tracks on it that are kind of unusual, but it really, their entire cultural cachet crashed and burned after that album.
Yeah, for sure.
And
they have a song on that album called Big Fat Funky Booty.
Big Fat Funky Booty, which by the way, you mentioned that to me the other day, and then I got it stuck in my head.
Yeah, and Chris actually, here's what happened with me. So I bought that album when I was right before I really got into hip hop, and enjoyed it. I was probably 11 or 12 years old. And then by the time that Turn It Upside Down, by the time that album came out, I was well beyond it. And so I just remembered I remember just seeing that was a song title, we talk about the Columbia House BMG catalog, where you're and the Spin Doc,
hits, Big Fat
and that was
Booty.
the first song they listed, and I was they really wrote a song called Big Fat that just sounds terrible,
and the song is terrible.
It's I
and
to this day
hear the lyrics. Gotta love her, that's my duty. She's got a big fat funky booty.
It's awful.
That's horrible.
And
I saw them. I told you I saw them in concert when I was a teenager, and it was on the Turn It Upside Down tour. Now I saw it because I liked the first album, not because I liked the second. But and I was just getting old enough to go to shows by myself. Yeah. And during Big Fat Funky
Where
Booty,
did you see them? What venue?
South Park Meadows.
Oh, really? In Austin?
Big. Yeah. That was that gig that had Cracker and Jim.
That's
Boston
right.
Too, right.
Yeah.
So, and during Big Fat Funky Booty, this is a very 90s story. This would have been 1993, 94, or something like that.
Sounds about right, yeah.
And I decided to go crowd surfing. So I'm
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm going to go crowd surfing. And I go up,
my God.
and they're lifting me up, and I'm doing, it's totally the ending of Rat Race or whatever.
Yeah.
It's they've got me in there.
Yeah.
But then they just kind of drop me.
That's usually what happens.
So I fall down, and
believe
it or not, because this shows you how addicted to moshing the 90s were. Mm-hmm. There's a huge mosh pit going on at a Spin Doctor show. Big Fat Funky Booty is playing, and I get kicked in the head. Yeah. And my girlfriend drags me out of the mosh pit, and it's That's what I think of when I think of Big Fat Funky Man.
That's a pretty.
It's like
getting kicked in the head after moshing. Yeah. You know what's funny is, this is a little bit off topic, but Bogarts, the kind of like theater-sized venue in Cincinnati, is still there. Bogarts. It's kind of like Cincinnati's emos a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
So they used to have a sign up in the front, like by the bouncer, that said, "Please be aware that crowdsurfing and moshing happen at this venue, and that like we're not liable," and all this stuff.
Right.
Like, it's so funny because, you know, if you're familiar with Cypress Hill, the rap group, you familiar with that group?
I've seen them live.
Really?
Yeah.
You saw Cypress Hill live?
Yes, I did.
Holy crap!
I had a giant inflatable Buddha.
That's amazing. So anyway, Be Real from Cypress Hill was on a podcast I listened to not too long ago, talking about their first self-titled album. And he said that whenever they played How I Could Just Kill a Man, or do Hand on the Pump.
Yeah.
Whenever they started playing, he's like, when we first toured on that album, when we started Hand on the Pump, like a mosh pit just broke out immediately when Hand on the Pump came on. And he was like, I don't even know. We weren't asking for that. It was just a thing that happened, and it was organic, and it was crazy. And to this day, when we do that song live, a fucking mosh pit breaks out. Like,
that's crazy.
It is crazy, and much cooler mosh pit, I'm sure, than the Spin Doctors. But, you know, what are you going to do, I guess, right?
That is an interesting thing, because, like, nowadays, I think if you went to a Spin Doctor show, it wouldn't happen. But something about, like, that moment, it was just, like, it wasn't like I was the only guy crowd surfing or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it was happening throughout the entire show. And it just doesn't happen anymore.
It doesn't. I mean, unless you're at that kind of show.
Yeah, I mean, a punk rock show.
Unless you're seeing a punk band or something.
Yeah, I mean, back then, it was even a pop rock band. Like,
yeah, seriously.
Coming on in.
Ooh, man. Here we are. Doing the do, as they say, right? Doing the do. All right, man. How are we looking?
So, to me, that's an example of can you think of another album like that where it's like, it made you reevaluate whether the group was even good at all?
So,
Or artist?
I was going to say, there's two ways I want to answer this question. The first way is that, like, the Nas album, It Was Written, came out with, had like If I Ruled the World. How's it going, man? If I Ruled the World and all that stuff on it. And that was a great record. But I remember hearing Illmatic and knowing that was the album he came out with before Illmatic, and listening to that and knowing how much better it was. I was like, wow. Like, I don't know how I feel about Nas. Like, I knew how I felt about Nas as like an MC and a rapper and all that stuff, but like, it was just kind of crazy that he had set the bar so high on Illmatic that It Was Written just felt kind of like an afterthought after that. I don't know. Yeah. Like, you know, so yeah, man, ready to rock. I'm gonna do a let's see. I'm gonna do a number 8 club sub regular please on white. Awesome.
I'll do number 7, turkey breast and provolone.
Okay, what kind of bread and what size?
Let's do white, and let's just do this medium size, the regular size.
Yeah.
So an 8 and a 7. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good, man. We're just talking.
So
yeah. So anyway,
was that album seen as like a turkey at the time, like his first record, or is it just more like the second album was
his
so
first
good?
record, Illmatic, flew kind of under the radar when it came out.
Really?
And then Illmatic was huge because it had that, or It Was Written was huge because it had that If I Ruled the World song with Lauryn Hill in it.
Right.
So that was really big. You know, everybody did love that song, you know, whatever. But
you know, one that's an interesting in this category that I think of, and maybe it's just in the.
Hold on one second.
Okay.
Mayonnaise for your eating?
Yes, please.
And is it Mike's Way?
Mike's Way, can I add pickles on there too?
And your 7's at Mike's Way?
Oh, sorry. Yes. What was she asking?
You on Mike's Way?
Mike's Way. Mike's Way all the way. Sure. Thank you.
Then I have a 10 with cheese after those.
And then if you could do light juices on mine too. Thank you so much. Juice it up, as they say, right?
Is that what they say?
That's what they say. So yeah, but that was a huge song. But a big example of that, right, is hold on. Let me go ahead. So I'm just gonna, I want a combo for my number 8, chips and a drink, please, and I'm gonna do my short points too, if that's cool. Oh no, I'm good. I'll keep the points for now. And I'll get my tip on here.
Are you eating pear?
Yes, ma'am. All right.
Sugar 8.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Appreciate it. You too.
do you order
No, I'm not.
Here's yours. So sweet type 76.
Get my drink here. Yeah, let's do that. Stubborn classic. There it is.
Oh yeah. So I was thinking another one like that is. I remember liking MC Hammer, and I know we talked about how terrible that album is.
It's really bad.
I was a kid, so the
Oh, yeah.
first album to me was really exciting and fun. You know, and like that Rick James sample is Unbreakable and stuff.
Yeah,
But
that's
then
true.
that second album that they added to it or something.
Oh, that was too legit to quit. So, this is gonna sound really dumb. Let me get my chips real quick. Got those Cool Ranch, bro.
Yeah, I got Cool Ranch Doritos. Let's see.
So,
I got a presentation I got to do at work. I got to have the stinkiest breath imaginable for that thing. You know, as you do.
so like when I was in junior high,
Right.
it was still public school, and there was this so some of the kids from Lakota High School, which at the time was the high school. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
They had this thing called the Medicine Show, and it was basically this anti-drug thing.
Oh, of course.
And they did a version of Too Legit to Quit. They replaced Too Legit to Quit with We're Too Smart to Start. It was the dumbest thing.
We're too smart to start.
Yeah, we're too smart to start using drugs and alcohol. It's so dumb, dude. But anyway, circling back, now the Nas is not a great example because it was good, and it didn't necessarily make me rethink Nas as an artist after hearing Illmatic. It just made me realize he set the bar really high, right? So, a better example of that is, you are familiar with Mobb Deep? Mm-hmm. Shook Ones and all that?
Yeah.
So their first album is an album called Juvenile Hell that didn't really get a lot of notice when it came out, but the Infamous was what put them on the map. So a lot of people listened to Juvenile Hell after the Infamous came out, and that album is pretty rough. I think they were trying to ride the wave of, there was a short-lived subgenre in hip-hop called horrorcore, like the Gravediggers and all that stuff.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it.
Esham and all that, and some of that stuff's not bad, but this particular album is not good.
You know, that kind of reminds me of the first Alice in Chains album, is a hair metal album or whatever, and you wouldn't think that. But going back, it's shocking to think here's one of the founding godfathers of grunge music, and they're making.
Wait, the first Alice in Chains, the one with I'm the Man in the Box and all that?
No. I think there's one before that.
Oh, really?
Maybe it's an independent release. I haven't really listened. I've heard it, but it may be that they released EPs or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they initially start out as a more mainstream I don't know if it's fair to call them a hair band, but exactly the opposite of grunge.
Really?
At least what you would think. Yeah, it's shocking. And so that kind of stuff.
That's interesting.
You can go back to and go, wow, that debut is awful.
Well,
but once Dirt comes along, it's a totally different story.
Well, and it's kind of funny too because when you're a band, I mean, I think in the 80s and 90s it was big, kind of the people's tastes kind of dictated what direction you wanted your band to go in to be viable and successful, right? You know,
Sure.
if you were a bunch of dudes that wanted to start a rock band, you were going to want to sound like Poison and Bon Jovi because you wanted to sell records and go on tour, and then Nirvana came and totally changed all that. But yeah, the Pantera, the metal band, they have a hair metal album too called Metal Magic or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So let's talk about other ones. So other kinds of turkeys we get. By the way, good turkey sandwich.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I made a little list of some kind of topics we talk about, like a depleted great artist. So it's an artist that's good, and they've maybe had a soul roll they've been on, and then suddenly they're out of ideas, right?
They're kind of punching above their weight, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, or they're just kind of just done. They've done what they came to do, but they still have 2 records on their contract, and they release an album that's going to sell 1 million copies anyway.
Right.
And I have like a couple. There's a lot of examples of this. I was just thinking about Stevie Wonder has an album called The Secret Life of Plants. Do you know that album?
No.
So we're going to talk about Stevie Wonder at length at some point because he's one of my favorite artists of all time. And in the 70s, he's got maybe the greatest soul roll in history, where he goes from
Songs in the Key of Life, Visions, like
Talking Book, Filling This First Finale. There's just all these great Music of My Mind. Like probably the best 5-run album. Like you can put that up against anyone. You put that up against the Beatles. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then he releases an album that's like mostly instrumentals about plants.
That's
and it's
weird.
just confounding album, And because it's Stevie Wonder, it's still better than your average album, you know what I mean? But it's very, very weird, and it was like the end of that. You knew like that era was over now.
Yeah.
And everything after that is a mixed bag for Stevie. He's still got some good stuff, but it's like he goes in a more commercial direction and everything. But
when did that album come out? Secret Life.
Like
of Plants?
78, I think.
Okay, so that was he had already had some really solid material to hang his hat on at that point.
Yeah. His career could have ended there and he'd still be a legend.
Fine,
yeah. I mean, the stuff we remember from the 80s that I just called to say I love you kind of stuff or whatever, like that's still to come. But most of the stuff when you think of Stevie Wonder is already recorded at that point.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney's a good one to bring up when you're talking about this, because Paul hits... And Paul's a little frustrating because almost every album has something redeemable on it.
Yeah.
But he's got a period where I would say he's got a couple of turkeys in the mid-'80s. Pipes of Peace, although that does have Say 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 on it, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
And really, like, the biggest turkey is an album called Press to Play.
Okay.
And these are albums where it's just clear Paul just doesn't have a direction anymore.
Yeah.
He just craps out a couple of things. Yeah. He's got a movie that he did around that time called Give My Regards to Broad Street, where he remakes a lot of old Beatles songs.
Oh, really?
So he's inferior versions of Beatles songs and stuff.
That's
although there's a couple of good songs on that. It's tricky. Like a lot of people point to him as a great example of an artist who was great once, but then kind of ran out of ideas. But
he did make his first 2 soul albums are really good too.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Ram is is as good as almost any Beatles album. It's so good. Yeah. And his first one, McCartney, is really good.
There's McCartney too, right?
Yeah, McCartney 2 is very weird, but it has people who really like it. He's experimenting with electronics for the first time.
Kevin Moss turned me on to that album. He loves it.
Yeah.
He thinks it's great.
I have mixed opinions of it, but I don't fault someone if they say it's really good.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
But I don't think there are too many fans of Press to Play.
Probably not.
He's got a song
I've never even heard of that album.
The title track's called Press.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, he starts singing about growing up in Oklahoma on it. I was like, what are you doing, Paul? Like, Paul likes to think of music as like storytelling or whatever. Like, he doesn't have to live it to tell it. And that's fine. But it's just weird, like a guy like Paul singing Oklahoma never was like this. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's to Oklahoma 2 or 3 times in your life. Come on, man.
Yeah. Do you think the Beatles ever went to Oklahoma on tour?
I doubt it. No, they may have. I'm sure he's played Tulsa at some point, but...
In that Keith Richards book, I don't want to bring up the Rolling Stones again, but the Keith Richards autobiography, he talks about being down south and playing with all those blues cats. Mm-hmm. And, he spent a lot of time in like Mississippi and Georgia and stuff, even before the Stones were popular.
Really? Mm-hmm. I didn't know he did that before.
Yeah. That's a really good book, man.
I'll have to check it out. They've got a kind of a dork age in the 80s. Well, a lot of the 60s artists had played some really bad music.
By the way, I went back and listened to Shattered, and you're pretty much right. It's like a dime store version of the New York Dolls.
Mm-hmm. With a kind of Lou Reed fake accent on it.
Yeah. So anyway, back to, I see you have Lou Reed Metal Machine music on there.
Yeah, that's a different category. I said artist makes a turkey on purpose out of spite. So there's a few examples of that.
And some people feel like that album was like indirectly contributed to like noise rock.
I think it probably did.
Wow.
You know, I mean, have you ever listened to it?
No.
I listened to it all the way through.
Yeah.
And I found it, like, I was surprised at how easy it was for me to listen to it. Maybe I've just listened to enough weird grinding Cabaret Voltaire music or something.
It's been built up as this kind of like, oh, he just turned on his amps and pressed record just so he could make an album to get out of his record contract and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, but I think it's a little more than that, you know.
Well, I think it also speaks to the fact that, like, people's tastes change over time. Something that just seems unlistenable and pointless in the 70s, now you can see like, oh, okay, this is not as radical as maybe it seemed at the time.
Right.
Or it doesn't feel as radical now.
Now that like Shellac and Big Black have made their thing, Steve Albini.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, maybe he was onto something here. Who knows?
Yeah, or maybe this is like, if you take 10% of this and put it into, you know, more straightforward song structures, you have Teenage Riot. Okay, well that's good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
and he also, like, when he was alive, he really liked Kanye, before Kanye kind of went crazy. And he said that, he said that Yeezus was hip-hop's Metal Machine music.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That might be true about Black Skinhead. I can see that.
That album's very Aguilar, dude.
Yeah.
A lot of noise on that album.
Yeah. But you know, a lot more carefully structured than Metal Machine music is, because Metal Machine music really is just noise.
It is.
Like four sides.
Yeah.
But I listened to it while I was working one day, and I would just kept doing what I was doing, and it wasn't super distracting. So I was like surprised. I was like, oh, it really isn't as painful as everybody says.
Yeah.
But it really is just noise.
Really?
There's another example of a turkey that was made out of spite. Have you ever listened to the Bang Sessions by Van Morrison?
No.
This is the funniest album. Literally, Van Morrison has some kind of contract that he's trying to get out of with Bang Records. He's got to deliver one album, but they don't have any stipulations on like what that album has to be or sound like or anything. So he literally just shows up with like an album he recorded in one night that he just made up on the spot.
That's awesome.
And I read once a review that said it's entertaining to listen to Van Morrison's guitar go slowly out of tune from the beginning to the end. You know,
so good.
But he's got these songs that are like, you got ringworm, and he's just like, you got ringworm. You're kind of lucky you got it. It's a very common disease or something. And he just like does a whole song about having ringworm that he's just making up off the top of his head.
That's amazing.
He's also got one called You Say France and I'll Whistle, and it's just like, you say France and I'll whistle. I mean, I'll whistle and you say France, and it's just like complete nonsense. But it pops up. He actually sings a little bit of it in the middle of, I think, Cypress Avenue on one of his live albums.
Really?
It's hilarious.
That's
it's
awesome.
Like,
do you know Kimya Dawson? Are you familiar with her?
Yes, the
Moldy Peaches.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like, she heard that album and she was like, I know what I want to be inspired by now. Nothing against Kimya, because she's absolutely brilliant. In fact, her and Aesop Rock, the rapper, they made an album together.
That sounds like a weird combination.
Really, I saw them during South by do a bunch of those songs live too.
Oh, really?
And it was great.
I really only know her from the Juno soundtrack. I didn't really get into Moldy Peaches and stuff, but I liked what I heard on it.
It was good. I dated a girl who was like super into her before she kind of did all the Juno stuff. And, like, saw her play a show in a bathroom in a bar in Cincinnati and stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. It's interesting. She's very unique. Not really a lot of stuff like her, but a lot of those lyrics kind of reminded me of Kimya lyrics, like, you know, kind of weird, off the wall stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense, but is still kind of cool in a quirky
almost
way.
like a stream of consciousness, but you know, in Kimya's case, probably a little bit more shape to it.
Exactly, Van was just going for the gusto one night in the studio. Yeah,
exactly. Just getting out of his contract, you know. And I don't know, they released it eventually, and it's one of those things you have to be careful of. Like, if you know what you're getting into, it can be really entertaining to listen to because it's funny. Right. But you have to listen to it like a comedy album. If you're just like, hey, I want the follow-up to Brown Eyed Girl, you know, you're going to be super disappointed.
You're not going to get that.
No, you're not.
It's kind of funny that the whole, like, I'm going to do what I can to get out of my recording contract, that seemed to be somewhat of a recurring theme in the 70s, man.
Yeah.
Record label execs must have just been dicks. Like,
Well, I mean, news at 11. That's
yeah, right? Yeah, big surprise there.
Do you have? All right. So on my list, I've got another couple of categories of turkeys. Unless you got another example of someone making a turkey out of spite. I think those
Not
are the
that I
best
could think of.
examples.
Those are two really good ones.
What about an artist does something really safe, which turns out to be super boring? Now these are kind of harder to talk about.
Yeah. 'Cause some people actually like that stuff.
Yeah. There's an album by the Pretenders called Pact. I don't
Okay.
think I would quite call it a turkey, but usually I think of it when I think of this category, where it's like 1990, 91, and you listen to it, and some people I've heard really boost this album, but to me it just all seems very anonymous. Like it's, they...
Yeah. Huh.
You could almost
Very
call
innocuous.
it depleted, but not in a sense of like just bad, just being just dull,
That's interesting.
Yeah. But I've heard some people defend it, but that's always a thing. But
Yeah.
but that's an example. I'm going to bring Neil Young up again in a second, but he's got a kind of famous series of weird albums in the '80s, and I think this was a contractual obligation album too. But he's got one called Everybody's Rocking,
Yeah.
which is like a '50s throwback album.
I've not heard that album, but I have heard another Neil Young album that a lot of people kind of go to that same means to an end. Old Ways, do you know that album?
No, I
It's a
don't know
country
that.
album.
Oh, wow.
It's like a space country album. And Graham and I, he was like, "You ever heard the Neil Young Old Ways record?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "It's so fucking bad. Like, it has a juice harp on it." That was his thing. Is like, there's a juice harp on one of the songs.
Yeah.
Which
I did a song with a juice harp on it.
Do you really?
Yeah. It's not that good, but it was fun to do live.
Yeah.
Like we would pull it out and people would laugh. It was just more of a comedy.
What? I don't even know what that instrument even looks like. It makes such weird noises. But
It's very strange. It's like a metal fork,
okay.
and it kind of curves around, and then it's got this thing that you can
Okay.
hit with your finger.
Okay.
And so it makes the sound by vibrating this bar that goes in between the forks.
Okay.
And it just makes that weird.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it is pretty fun. You can end up like hitting your teeth, and that's not fun because you actually play it on your teeth in your mouth.
Oh, really?
So yeah,
Oh.
if you're not familiar with it, listeners, look it up.
Because it's a harp.
Very strange.
Yeah, like a harmonica-ish, kind of.
I mean, kind of. It's
Yeah.
sort of
Juice harp.
the dumb the stupid harmonica is what it is. Because you can't really get a lot of tone out of it. You just kind
Yeah.
of get that effect. And it's a very
Which is
one-dimensional
kind of
instrument.
fine, yeah.
It's the triangle of like bluegrass music.
That'd be great if like Flying Lotus decided to make a juice harp album.
I would love someone just turns it to be like the Jimi Hendrix of the juice
Yeah,
harp.
seriously.
But it's fun. It's fun to play. It's a gimmick, kind of.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of Neil Young's Everybody's Rockin' album. So
I've not heard that.
That's an example of something that just you listen to it, and I mean, I guess you can't really say it was totally safe because he'd never really made an album like that before.
Right.
But he made music that everybody you hear it and you're like, yeah, I've heard this like a million times already. This is not anything special.
He's not reinventing the wheel here.
No, he's
It's
just like, okay, here's like 50s bass
yeah,
rock.
here's some kind of, greaser shit.
Yeah. Another one that might be like this is like Fairweather Johnson by Hootie
Who
the
do you,
Blowfish.
well, really?
Well, I'm not defending the first Hootie album, but it had a couple of hits on it. And then the second album, the follow-up, Fairweather Johnson, it's just more Hootie, but
Yeah.
boring. Or like, which Hootie is boring enough, but
Exactly.
like that follow-up is even worse. So
Yeah.
that may be another example of that. So,
Yeah. I remember my sister taped that album off of a CD, and on the little label she wrote like Hootie, just Hootie. Because Hootie and the Blowfish were like the first Dave Matthews band where you just called him by the first name. Like, are you going to see Hootie? It's so dumb. Now that Darius Rucker guy is like a country star.
which doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
he does
me
have
neither.
a pretty good voice.
He does have a good voice, and actually, that's a pretty good avenue for him to go in. I feel like, and I feel like of that like really generic bland pop country, I feel like he kind of brings something to that.
Like, it doesn't bother me that he's out there doing that. You know
Me
what I mean?
neither.
It's
Me
like-
neither.
There always need to be some kind of middle-of-the-road artists, as long as they're not offensively bad.
Exactly.
Then who cares? right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, on Florida-Georgia line, we're talking.
Yeah,
to you.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So I don't. So that's an example of them doing something safe that's boring. But then, excuse me, there's the flip side, which is an artist does something really radical, which is poorly conceived, right?
Okay, that's a good one, man.
Yeah, because there's a lot of times where people go out, and I kind of broke this out, but we could probably couple this with artists make something blatantly commercial, embarrassing themselves. Because
I see Chris Cornell and Timbaland. Oh man,
Yeah.
I was going to bring that up if you did. You okay?
let's talk about both of these together, because I think they make sense. I think that's either super commercial or just super weird and radical.
Right.
Yeah, Chris Cornell and Timbaland. I tried to listen to it a little bit this morning just to get an idea,
Did you
because I hadn't
really?
listened to it in a while.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
Yeah,
like,
it's not good.
I mean, to me, like, when everyone said, oh, Timbaland and Chris Cornell work together.
Yeah.
I first heard about it, like, someone was asking, I think, Chris Novoselic about it, and he was trying to demur or whatever, because he likes Chris and everything. But I was like, why is that such a bad idea? You know, maybe you could come up with something good, you know?
Yeah.
And then you listen to it, and it's like, new?
Well, it's just like Timbaland is making like hip hop beats that don't really match with Chris Cornell's dynamic. Like it's just Chris Cornell singing over like Genuine Pony for 45 minutes. Like, that doesn't work. Like,
Doesn't work.
you know, and that's fine. Like Timbaland can do what he does, and Chris can do what he does, but they don't really match, and that's the problem. You know. I mean, if maybe Timbaland could make beats that were more suited to like a rock vocalist's voice, maybe it would have been better. Or, in the flip side of that is if Chris Cornell would have collaborated with someone like, I don't know, like a different producer, a different hip hop producer. Like if he were to collaborate with Dr. Dre would probably actually make beats that are more in tune with what he does, because Dre can do that, you know. And like, or in the inverse of that, like Timbaland can make an album with like the guy from Maroon 5 or something, you know, because that guy, you know, is kind of has that like pop soul thing, you know. Like, I don't really care for Maroon 5 personally, but at the same time, that would be a better matchup, you know. That would work better than Chris Cornell and Timbaland, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess the thing I always thought about it is that Chris Cornell wanting to be, as a rock star, wanting to confront hip hop in a way that's like that's interesting. I can understand why the siren call of working with Timbaland would make sense.
Right.
But when you listen to it, you can just see, well, this is just a poorly conceived idea.
It
you know?
is. Yeah.
Another one that I had off of this, and this is the Neil Young album that I kind of want to defend a little bit, is Trans by Neil Young. Have you ever heard that?
Don't know that one either.
It's like this strange Vaporwave album. You ever,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I know Vaporwave. Yeah, absolutely.
So
It's
it's not like the best sort of crazy 80s sounding, you know, Miami Vice soundtrack album you ever heard in your life.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, especially from a retrospect standpoint. It must have blown the minds of Neil Young fans back then, and it's got this reputation as this horrid album. But I think it sounds almost quaint from a 2018 perspective.
Yeah, okay.
I mean,
what's the name of Trans?
Trans, Trans.
I'll check it out. It sounds cool.
Yeah, I think he was just trying something different.
Yeah.
You know, reaching a little bit, and people just thought, look, you're not an electronic artist, you're not a disco artist, you're not a pop artist, don't make this kind of music. And it would have been weird to see Neil Young go in that direction. Yeah. But as like a one album, one and done pit stop, I think it's
not
defensible.
bad.
It's not bad.
Okay.
So
that's fair.
Don't at me, bro.
Now, what
if
is
you don't like it?
Don't at me.
You know.
What is the genetic makeup of that album, though? Like, does he fuss with electronics on it?
Oh yeah, it's full of electronics.
Okay.
It sounds like, I don't know, like the intro music to Airwolf or something.
Seriously?
Gotta bring up that
you
Airwolf.
said like Vaporwave. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a Vaporwave
okay.
album. So it's it's not the best Vaporwave style album you're ever going to hear, but it is an interesting digression for him. You know, definitely not a direction for the future, but not a bad album.
Yeah.
But it's remembered as a turkey. You ever heard Elvis Costello's "Goodbye Cruel World"
I have
album?
not, no.
That's an example of, like, especially in the 80s, people like Elvis Costello were trying to figure out, how do I confront modern recording techniques? How do I confront synthesizers? How do I do it?
Right.
And he sometimes defends the album as like one of his best packs of songs, which I don't agree with, but it does have a couple of good things on it. It's got the Comedians on it. It's got Love Field. Those are kind of classic Elvis Costello songs. But my favorite thing is he said once of it, he said, this album the production on this album, you can identify the exact week in 1987 that it was recorded, or whatever, 85, 87, whatever it was.
That's awesome.
Because it is so like in the 80s that it's inescapable.
You just can't
and
get
it's
away
just
from it.
A pack of 80s cliches. you know? And I
That's
would
too
put
bad.
that in an example of someone making something blatantly commercial. He's
Yeah.
trying to like seize the moment,
Sure.
and it just
just
fails.
falls flat. Yeah.
I don't know. You got anything else kind of like that? You could think of?
You know, I can't say that I do. That's a really good question.
I also mentioned U2's Pop on there. Do you know that album? Do you know U2 very well?
Oh, here and there. Yeah, nothing crazy. Pop was the one. Wait, no, that's like Pop was. Zooropa was a different album than
Yeah,
Pop.
Zeropa's a good album.
Zeropa's not bad. Pop
Yeah.
came before or after that?
After. It's
Okay.
it's sort of so Zeropa is like it's a weirder version of October Baby, basically. It's
Okay.
more electronic,
Okay.
it's more danceable, but it's still kind of a rock album. The pop is like they went even farther. They took one more step in that direction, and it's basically like a late '90s dance record.
Yeah.
But with bad vibes all throughout. So the problem, even Bono has said about that album, is that, you know, they tried to pitch it as like a party record, but then he realized afterwards that they wrote a record where it's like a party you wouldn't want to go to because it's just miserable, and, you know, there's all this like self-doubt in the record, in the lyrics and stuff.
That's crazy.
I know some people who hugely defend that album. Who think it's one of their best, and fans of Pop, and I know they're out there. You know, they will tell you that it's this misunderstood album.
Yeah.
But I've listened to Pop. To me, Pop is like the Star Wars prequels or something. You know, they say like it's the worst movie you've seen 15 times. Or something. Pop to me is like that. It's like the worst album that I've heard 100 times.
Yeah.
You know, because I did listen to it a lot back then.
So
but time has not been kind to it. I don't think it's up with their best work at all.
So it's interesting that you say that, because there is a band that had not just one album where they may have went in a turkey to, well, some people feel this way. I think that there's some redeeming qualities to this particular band's arc, but Rush had a whole era, like had a whole like 4 album stretch where they decided to be like synth pop, you know? Like,
Yeah,
sure, man.
Duran.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's funny too. Hold on. Pardon me. It's funny too that they kind of gloss all that over in the documentary, and basically it's like, you know, Alex Lifeson gets pissed because he's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, you know, I'm a guitarist, and like, you know, I'm playing these keyboards and shit. Like, what the fuck, you know? And it's just kind of funny. And then, you know, it basically cuts from that to like Rupert Hines saying, you guys are a power trio. Like, why don't you be a power trio? Like, and then they make Presto and, you know, a bunch of that stuff. But I don't know.
Would you consider Presto as a part of that era? Or is that kind of them getting out of the era?
I would consider Presto a clean break of them getting out of that era. Because they have Presto and Roll the Bones are like, they're kind of returned to form in a way. The problem with those 2 albums is they're kind of thin. There's like not a lot, and they say that in the documentary. The guy that became their producer after Roll the Bones, that did like Counterparts and all that, he was like, they're very thin sounding albums, and he's right about that.
And that's part of the reason why I still kind of, because Presto in particular sounds very 80s to me.
Yeah, it
but
does.
I think it's got some stronger material on it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not the biggest Rush fan. I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about Rush at some point. But I don't hate them, and that is one album that I found myself surprisingly drawn to. You know. So. But you're talking about like Power Windows and stuff like that.
Yeah, like Hold Your Fire, Power Windows, Grace Under Pressure, which we've talked about before. That goes in that direction. There's maybe 1 or 2 other ones.
They were listening to like the Talking Heads and stuff.
Yeah,
like that, right? So,
and like Ultravox and the Police and all that shit, and like.
And I guess I understand why the temptation is to go there. Rush was always kind of like that. They don't. It's something that people don't bring up much with Rush, but they're not culture chasers because they're musicians first and foremost.
Right,
but I think they're always listening to what other bands are doing and incorporating ideas in. And that is to their credit. Yeah. But it does mean that they're kind of. You could call that a dork age, probably, right?
Yeah, you could, and some people think it's a dork age, and I don't know. There's some not so good stuff from that era that I don't care for. Like they have a song with Amy Mann called "Time Stands Still," and it's like I don't even know what to make of that song. And it's like, and Amy's great on it, and it's a decent song, but it's like okay, like, I don't know what you guys are trying to do, who you guys are trying to be. And it has this weird video where, like, they're all floating in the air and stuff.
Their videos are kind of interesting too, because like they've got what's the name of there's like a grunge video that looks like every other like Bush video ever, but it's Rush, and it's just very strange.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm used to seeing this look and feel, but not with the sort of 70s. I'm going to say dinosaur act, but a band that's been around that long.
Yeah, for sure.
But
So it's kind of tough to put my finger on exactly what my turkeys are, I guess, other than like I brought up Mobb Deep, Juvenile Hell, and Illmatic, and it was not really turkeys, because I will say that Nas's albums after it was written not so great. I don't think I don't know, like. Me and my old roommate Nick Rode, we had this theory that we used to throw around a lot when we were roommates, is that like, musicians, artists, bands, like they have the way that their trajectory spans is they have like one album that is their sound fully and completely realized, and everything else is just maybe an addendum to their fully completely realized sound, or it strays off in a different direction, or it gets really experimental, or it falls into one of the categories that you espoused when we were eating lunch, okay, well they had a really ill-conceived artistic album that maybe wasn't thought out well, or they played it safe or whatever. I think a lot of bands, almost, unless it's just something really vapid and stupid, and unless it's like fucking Britney Spears or something, I don't know, like. So our best example of that were the Roots. The Roots, Things Fall Apart is their sound, their best album. It's their sound fully realized. Everything else is kind of building up to that sound, or like flourishes of that sound here and there, but all in all trying to do something different. Like they have an album called Phrenology that has like some punk songs on it and stuff.
I love that album. The Seed is one of my favorites.
Oh, Cody Chestnut,
so good.
I saw them live with Cody Chestnut opening up, and Cody Chestnut came out and did that song with them for the encore. It was so killer.
I saw them, but they did like the 1.0 version or whatever, which is still pretty cool, but it's definitely, I love that, the version that's on Phrenology.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that is kind of a good barometer to measure stuff like this, right? I think it's kind of like here's their sound fully realized.
I don't know if I totally agree with that. Okay. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, no,
but I think some bands are like that, but then other bands, they kind of evolve with time, and they sort of evolve between different sounds, and of course there's always room for the big reinvention. So you can have like we were talking about U2 earlier, like you could definitely say the maybe Joshua Tree is the full summation of their early sound. But then when Achtung Baby comes around, like Achtung Baby is a totally different sound, and it is I think a fully formed version of that sound. And then maybe you can make a case for Unforgettable Fire before that, or even their later albums, that it's kind of its own thing too. So and the Beatles definitely flummoxed that idea, because there's like the Hard Day's Night is a full summation of that initial sound. But you can't say everything off of that is a variation, because Sgt. Pepper doesn't sound anything like that.
And it's still fucking amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Or Abbey Road, or you know what I mean? Or the White Album. Like there's so many different ways that the Beatles' career could have gone. You can't point to any one of those and say that's like the gold standard by which the rest of their career is sort of understood. But a lot of bands, that's true. I think that is true. Where, maybe someone like Pearl Jam, even, like that first record for a lot of people sort of crystallized right away what they were about. And everything else is maybe some version of that. It's a little unfair, but I mean, I think that's, you could make that case.
Yeah, I think that's true. I don't know. I mean, I think that might be a good example. Like, I think the Roots are a perfect example of that formula, but I think, not like you said, not every band is going to be...
Radiohead, it doesn't fit.
Exactly,
you know what I mean? Like, the Bends is, I think, a crystallization of the first phase, and then, but then it's OK Computer and Kid A, I think both have their arguments for almost being a different band. You know what I mean? Or at least
for sure.
Certainly a different sound.
Well, doesn't Creep, Tom York hates that song now.
Yeah, I
if
think
I
so.
understand that
Right.
correctly. Yeah,
Well,
like Courtney told me
it's
that.
also the
like-
right style move to hate that song. But,
Agreed. Yeah.
But they sort of hated that song from the start. You know,
Really?
like
Yeah.
I think I don't know. Like that's a whole. I'm sure they get sick of playing. It's like they're not the first band in history got sick of playing their first hit. You know.
Yeah.
Like, but when I saw them live back at '95,
Yeah.
like Creep was transcendent. It was incredible. You know.
Yeah, well, and I mean it was still kind of fresh and new in everybody's minds.
Yeah.
Was that Pablo Honey or was that the Benz?
That was the Benz.
Okay.
I saw them on the Benz.
Yeah.
Well, when they were
Well,
opening
no,
for
with
Ari.
the song.
The song? No, that song's on Pablo Honey.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, a kind of an underrated album, I think. Pablo
Really?
Honey. Well, here's the thing. Like, it's underrated because it's been kind of shunned, but
Yeah.
and it is nowhere near the strength of their other albums.
Right.
But, you know, as a sort of grunge era debut, it's got a
Yeah.
couple of tracks on it that I think are really good. I don't think
Right.
it's embarrassing.
Okay.
You know, Blur's first album, Leisure, is kind of a dance rock album, and it's got,
Yeah.
and it often gets categorized that way too, where it's like, here's a debut that isn't representative of
Yeah.
the rest of the band. So kind of going back to that category you were talking about.
Well,
And they
yeah.
usually, the band trashes that album, but you go listen to it and it's completely fine. It's
Right.
not, it doesn't sound like the work of a great band, but it doesn't sound like the work
Yeah.
of a lousy band either.
I think Damon Albarn is a really great example of an artist really evolving, like completely on his own. You know,
Yeah.
like through Blur and then the Gorillaz. Like, you can hear a very interesting progression that was very much helmed by him and only him. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, if that makes sense. I mean, it's very cool to hear because you don't feel like there's a ton of outside influence creeping into his psyche. He's just making really cool and interesting music and evolving while he does it.
Yeah.
I think that's rare.
I think it's very
You know,
rare. I think, and especially to be as adaptable as he is.
Exactly.
Like, I consider him the Paul McCartney of his generation.
Absolutely.
But
I would agree
he's
with
kind
that
of a little
100%.
bit the John Lennon of his generation too, because he's a lot more adventurous. And Paul is more adventurous than he gets credit for.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, Paul experimented with reggae and stuff some. It's a bit mixed
that sounds
results.
kind of nauseating.
But I mean, he legitimately loved reggae.
That's
You know
fair.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so he. But I can't, like, if you listen to Sea Moon or something, it's hard to defend his
Yeah.
experiments there. But like, it's clear Damon Albarn loves hip hop, you know,
Yeah,
just as much as
right.
he loves the Kinks.
Right, exactly.
And so he's
Yeah.
been able to successfully. Like, you were playing me some tracks off of Humans the other day,
It's
and I
great,
was like,
man.
wow, yeah, he really has figured out a way to
Yeah.
make modern sounding hip hop.
Right.
And you know, he's
yeah.
a white Englishman. You know, like you'd
well,
be
and the
surprised.
greatest thing about the way he made Humans is he synthesized all of these new hip hop sounds into something that's digestible by someone like me. Like, he made like Pasta News from De La Soul and that Humans song. He was trying to make him sound like he was like a SoundCloud rapper or something, but in a really cool and interesting way,
Yeah.
in a way that like Migos is not going to be able to do, you know?
Right.
And I'm not gonna rail against any of that shit because I've already done it enough. But
Yeah.
you know, the way that he did that voice modulation on that song,
Right.
it's
That's Momentum, right?
Yeah, moments
Okay,
with a
right,
Z, moments like this. It's the most.
That's right.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. It's really interesting and really cool.
I think
and
he's really avoided making too many turkeys. Actually, like that's
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
He's like the kind of artist that a lot of times these turkeys are made because people are sticking their neck out or
Right.
whatever, or
Right.
they're taking a step back. And he's got a couple of albums like Everyday Robots that aren't that great.
Yeah.
But I would almost say like bang for your buck.
Yeah.
He's probably a recent artist or artist working today, probably
Yeah.
the one that I would hold up as like,
Right.
this guy doesn't screw up too much.
No. Yeah. Yep.
So we're almost back.
Yeah, man.
So before we get back, Thanksgiving, man. We'd like to wish
Thanksgiving.
everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, yeah.
You got some big plans? What are you and Courtney going to do?
We're going to New York and New Jersey. We're going to be there for
Whoa.
about 5 or 6 days. Yeah,
That sounds
we're-
exciting. Okay.
We're going to spend about a day and a half in the city. Maybe check out the Staten Island Ferry, eat some good food, see some friends, and then we're going to head over, take the train over to Jersey to see Courtney's family, Courtney's dad's family. So it should be fun. We're going to go
check out Storm King, which is this really cool outdoor art installation thing. It's in upstate New York. It's about 2 hours away from Jersey, and we're gonna drive there one of the days. If you've seen the TV show Master of None, in the second season they go to Storm King, and it's really cool, and it looks really neat. And Courtney was really into art, so that's usually something we try to do when we travel, is go to see art installations and go to art museums and stuff. So yeah, it should be fun, man. I love going to New York. So
I've never been.
Oh man, one day
the podcast.
I was gonna say one day, hopefully the podcast will take us there, and we will go to Russ and Daughters to get bagels and lox and smoked herring and all that stuff. And
Sounds great.
Oh my god, dude, we'll go to I mean, I've only been there a couple of times, so I don't have like serious go-to spots, but that's one of them. Graham actually hit me to that. He goes there every time he goes to New York. Russ and Daughters is very, very good. It's been there for like 100 years too. So
well, fantastic.
Yeah, man.
Well, my plan's just to go. We're going to see Steph's family.
Sure.
So it's kind of the opposite. We're going out to West Texas. It's
Yeah.
the opposite of New York, but it's going to be a good time.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, yeah. So those of you who are out there, we hope you guys have a good Thanksgiving. Those of you that are in the U.S., and we hope you get to spend a lot of good quality time with your families and get to eat some good food and, do what you do, whatever you do, and makes you happy,
And if you're in that moment where you filled your belly with turkey, maybe you had a couple of beers, and you're laying back and you're like...
You're watching the Cowboys lose.
Yeah,
We're going to get lots of
tweets on that. Put that mess on mute and listen to some turkeys. Try
That's
one of
right,
these albums
yeah.
out there we have. Try out that Trans by Neil Young.
Yeah.
Let me know what you think about it.
Yeah, man. I'm going to listen to some of that stuff. It sounds
tell me what
cool.
you think. It's very interesting stuff.
You should listen to Old Ways too. It's weird, because I guess Neil Young basically works in like elements of country for the most part, right?
Right, sure.
But this album is like not only a really hard step in that direction, but it's like a cosmic country album kind of. It's really
I don't
weird.
know what that is. It's like
It's hard to explain. Like cosmic space country.
space.
I'm trying to think of some.
Cowboy by Glenn Campbell.
No.
Okay.
Like, I don't know.
No, it's not. I'm sorry. It's,
Well, the whole
Rhinestone Cowboys. What I was thinking.
yeah. The cosmic cowboy thing is kind of like
You know the legendary Stardust Cowboy? Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay.
What is
Okay, we'll do
that?
outsider music, but legendary Stardust Cowboy is...
Yeah, excuse me, guys. Sorry. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Legendary Stardust Cowboy is a Lubbock artist from the 60s.
Oh, okay.
But he plays like a bugle. And
Are you serious?
The Stardust from Ziggy Stardust comes from the legendary
You're
Stardust.
kidding. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
So definitely, if you want to hear a turkey,
Oh, yeah.
that's one to listen. It's got a bugle solo in it. It's so good.
Shit, that sounds awesome, dude. A bugle solo?
Yep, a bugle solo in a
Wow.
60s song called Paralyzed. That's the song you check out, guys.
All right, man. Well, we are back at work now, so we have to go do what we do. We're going to sign off for now, but we hope you guys enjoyed this second Lunchtime episode, and we will see you soon.
Take care.
Take care.
And that was the Minisode number 2,
Yeah.
Lunchtime Turkeys. I really enjoyed that,
I did
man.
too.
It was a lot of fun.
I did too. A lot of things I learned in that episode, like what a dork age is.
Yeah, I loved your 20s voice. We need to bring that back sometime.
Oh, we
I would
will.
do a whole
We
podcast
will.
with you if you just talk.
Oh my
like
God! What if we did like some kind of
like bad sketch comedy or something? Yeah. Like you could just do that.
Who's on first?
you could do that in the dark age, and then I could do like a 30s gangster. What do you say?
Yeah, like, hey, Sonny.
Let's talk about the
Get
new
in the
pornography.
Studebaker. I don't know. It's probably not a Studebaker. What was I don't know what the fancy mobster cars were back then.
Studebaker's fine. I don't know.
Whatever.
Yeah,
So we weren't alive then.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things I wanted to clear up about our conversation about Nas. So I think the way that I said it and the way that I worded it might have been confusing in that Nas's first album was Illmatic and Nas's second album was an album called It Was Written. And basically what I was trying to get across was that when It Was Written came out, it was kind of like it was the big Nas record. Like Illmatic came out, and I'm pretty sure that Illmatic got five mics from the source, but it still kind of flew under the radar a little bit. So that album didn't really seep into people's brains as one of the best hip hop albums of its time until maybe 5 years later, right?
Yeah.
So Illmatic came, there was fanfare. Some people recognized it was a great album, some people didn't, but It Was Written came out, and that song, If I Ruled the World with Lauryn Hill,
Right.
it was huge.
Oh,
right?
I remember it. Like, and I
it
wasn't
was-
really paying attention
Yeah.
to hip hop at the time.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my goodness, what is this? You know?
It was huge. And then, so when that album came out, I, of course, bought it and listened to it to death. And then I remember hearing about Illmatic, and some people said it was much better. And I remember, this is going to sound so dumb, but when Illmatic came out, you know the show Married with Children, right?
Of course.
So, you know, the character Bud Bundy in that show, David Faustino, was very, very much into hip hop. And in one of the scenes, in one of the episodes of that show, he had a Nas Illmatic poster in his bedroom. And I remember, and this was before It Was Written came out, and this was before Nas was really popular. The one with like he was the his head as a baby, kind of like superimposed on Brooklyn or Queensbridge or whatever. And so I thought that was really striking at the time. And then I realized and remembered after I listened to It Was Written to death that he had an album before that. So I remember going to Circuit City where I bought
I bought
CDs.
so many CDs at
So
Circuit
did
City.
I.
You know what? Because they were like $3 cheaper
They
at
were.
Circuit City.
At
Like,
Best Buy,
I don't know what
yeah.
sorry to go off because this Illmatic stuff I definitely want to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
But like they used to have a place called Camelot and Disc Jockey where like
Yeah.
the two
I
big-
went to Camelot. That's where I got that's where I got the Low End Theory in '91. Camelot
Fantastic.
Music. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I bought a lot of stuff at
Yeah.
Camelot too, but that was
Yeah.
at the mall in Temple. Where
Okay,
you know, so-
okay.
and it was like CDs were $15, maybe
$15.99, $14.99, I
That's
remember,
probably pretty
yeah.
much it, right?
Yeah.
And then you could just go across the street to Circuit City,
Yeah.
$11.
Yeah, it was crazy. Best Buy too. Like
Yeah.
they priced that stuff way low because they had, they didn't have just music. So
Yeah. So sorry to take that little aside. But you know, if Circuit City came back tomorrow, I would still shop there. I'm just saying.
Well, they would be selling records and
Yeah.
stuff now. But anyway, so I remember going to Best Buy and buying Illmatic, and it was only $9.99 because that was like, oh, this is Nas' first album that nobody really cares about.
Wow.
It's not It Was Written. And I remember bringing it up to the register, and the guy's like, you know, this isn't the most recent Nas album, right? And I was like, yeah, I know, I already have that one. He's like, oh, okay, cool. So I'll pay my $10.81 with tax, get in my car, put it in the CD player, and I was like, oh my God, this is what I've been missing. Because I had heard It Ain't Hard to Tell, and I remember how, like on Yo MTV Raps, hearing and listening to that song, classic hip hop song. If you don't know It Ain't Hard to Tell, I'll leave him froze like Heron and you knows Nas I rock well. It ain't hard to tell. Like such quotable lyrics and such vivid lyrics in that song. I mean, we obviously don't have to, goes without saying with an MC like Nas. But I remember listening to it, and I remember all this like thematic element to it that just wasn't part of It Was Written. And after that, I kind of reapproached It Was Written from a different pair of eyes. It's like I had a different pair of my eyeglass prescription had changed than when I listened to It Was Written after listening to Illmatic, and it was just completely different experience after that. And it didn't make me rethink Nas as an MC or an artist. I still thought It Was Written was a strong record, but Illmatic was just, the bar was set so high that it was really tough to, kind of complete that thought, you know what I'm saying? And make something and bring something else to the table. So that's kind of all I wanted to say about that. That's all the confusion I really wanted to clear up.
Right. I mean, I think I got from it when you were saying it originally that you weren't really calling that a turkey of a record. But
Absolutely
it's just,
not.
It was
Yeah.
an example of like a record where the shine went off of it after. Because I
Absolutely.
think the topic was like any situations where the second album makes you rethink the first one.
Yeah.
And this may be almost the opposite of that, where it's like the first album makes you rethink the second one, but the second one was the one you approached first.
Exactly.
I was trying to think as you were explaining that if there was an example of that for me, and the only one that I could really think of that at least just pops to mind, maybe because the poster's on the wall right here,
Yeah.
but is the Combat Rock by
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Clash.
the Clash.
Now, that's one of my favorite albums of all time. I love Combat Rock. And it's the first Clash album that I ever really knew. You know,
Really?
it's like, well, Should I Stay or Should I Go?
Yeah.
And
Like, isn't
Rock
like-
the Casbah
Yeah.
are on that. And those were played a lot
Yeah.
on Kanak. But
Yeah.
they didn't really play anything off of London Calling. And then when I heard London Calling for the first time, it was like...
It's way different, that album.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I still love Combat Rock, but I remember like up to that point, I felt like Combat Rock was like, oh, that's the Clash. Like, that's the Clash, like, prime album. And you hear London Calling, and it's like, oh, wow, no, that's the
that's
album.
actually the
and now
one right
suddenly,
there,
like,
yeah.
the couple of the tracks on Combat Rock that don't really work as well, like, you realize, oh, no, this band had much more than just what they did on Combat Rock.
Right.
So I get that, Again, not turkeys, really, but they still kind of fit into that idea.
There's contextual things that really kind of, make you have to try and make sense of when you listen to albums, I think, because those two songs, like you said, Should I Stay or Should I Go, and Rock the Casbah are seminal Clash. I mean, that's the first Clash song I heard was Rock the Casbah.
Yeah.
I mean, Sharif Don't Like It,
that's so good.
That's, and that's, who I thought the Clash were, and they very much kind of are in a way with that.
Right,
They
right.
I
don't think that album's like unrepresentative or bad
Absolutely
or anything.
not.
I still think it's an all-timer.
But London Calling is one of
that's
the
a
best
top 10 of all time.
Of all
kind of
time.
album,
Yeah, I mean, it's such a dense piece of music. There's all kinds of experiences.
Maybe we'll get a chance to talk about that album someday. So we'll see.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see. You want to hear? There's one thing I want to say briefly about London Calling is I was listening to Revolution Rock once. This was when I had the first apartment out of my parents' house. And my roommate was this guy named Chad, super sweet guy, but wasn't really didn't know as much about music as I did, which obviously is
fine.
Is fine.
okay.
Yeah, no big deal. But I was listening to Revolution Rock, and he thought it was Bob Marley.
Really?
Yeah,
Because
he's
it's like Revolution.
Listening to Marley, man. I'm like, this is the Clash, man. This is like the greatest band ever. And he was like, oh, really? That surprised me. And that's like a reggae song, like
Kind of, yeah.
Revolution Rock.
But to be able to miss the vocal, like to
Yeah, I
confuse
know.
the vocals
I
of
know.
Joe Strummer with
Bob Marley,
Bob Marley.
is pretty, yeah. And I don't know. There was a big kind of following for Bob whenever that Legend Greatest Hits album came out, which
of
I think
course.
is a really not a poor representation of his work, but it has a lot of overproduced stuff on it, and I don't know.
It doesn't tell the whole story.
It
but
has
it's
that
one
really
hell
bad
of a great
version of No Woman, No Cry that's live and
right.
it's
That's
mixed
true.
all wrong and there's feedback all over the place. And everybody thought that was I thought that was like the greatest song ever for 3 weeks. And then I heard the fast version that's on Natty Dread and I was like, oh wait, this is way better. What the hell, so.
I still think Legend is great, but it doesn't sum up Bob Marley's
I agree.
career,
I agree.
at all.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
awesome. Well,
yeah.
I think, is there anything else that we want to add?
I think
here?
that's about it. I just wanted to clear up that confusion about Nas and kind of just, I guess, tie it up in a bow. And, for Lunchtime Minisode number 2, numero dos, as I said, the beginning of the episode. And we really hope you guys enjoyed this one. And we hope you guys get to spend some good quality time with your families and eat some good food over Thanksgiving. For those of you in the States, for those of you that aren't, thank you for listening as always. And we will catch you on the flip.
Bye. I don't know what to say.
Couldn't have
at the end of
said.
Catch you on the flip.
You were just like, bye.
I think we're going to leave that in.
That's fine.
That's fine. I think that was good.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Cool.
With it. Awesome.